So I am Khushbu Bedi and I head the career cell at the Sanskar Valley School, Bhopal. This is my seventh IC3 and out of seven, I think I've presented 5 times. But every time I stand here, I feel equally excited. And I have my friend Ye-In. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ye-In Oh, and I am the college counselor at Utaloy International School, Guangzhou. I've presented, this is my 4th conference I'm presenting. Every time I stand in front of people, I get nervous, but excitement and anxiety are 2 sides of the same coin. And we'll talk about that as that arises out of rejection. So thanks for being with us today.
Great. So, I thought people who are sitting here are absolutely intentional about attending a session on rejection. And I think somewhere we all have experienced this emotion either ourselves or through our students. So if we are here, it means we need a platform to talk about this. And rejection is really something that is a very big umbrella thing where we need to understand where is this rejection coming from? What are the different reasons, environments, who are the stakeholders who are affecting our students, making them feel rejected? And what are really the impact of this emotion that is rejection? This rejection actually trickles down different emotions in us. We will help you decode all those emotions, where it's coming from, and then what can really be done about it. So that's really the idea of our topic, rejection blues. As a counselor, I personally had one experience where one of my students just called me. I've got the email from the university, but I don't have the guts to open it alone. And that child was actually struggling to do her UPenn applications, MNT, Management and Tech, from grade 9. And she was like, I can't do this myself. I'm coming to your office. Please hold my hand and then only I'll open it. And she came. We opened the email and we regret to inform you that. The moment she read that, I think she just blacked out. She was sweating, and I could just see that the whole world has collapsed for her. That's the closest I've seen rejection.
You're lucky.
Sorry?
You're lucky.
And the other thing, there was one student, my neighbor, and she came to me and she said, Ma'am, I'm a 90% student. I always get 90 above. I have very high aspirations. She got a 1550 on SAT. Very, very brilliant girl. But she said, my parents are not willing to send me abroad unless, I get a substantial scholarship. So can you help me? And I immediately agreed. We started working on that. But substantial means 80 to 90% scholarship. That's huge. She wanted to study psychology in the US. And so we started the application process. The email came, we opened, and it said 70% scholarship, which is huge, right? But that girl was so sad, and again she felt, I've lost it. I will have to study in my home country, and that's the end. But I think for a week, she didn't speak to me. She didn't show me her face. And I just kept calling her mom that I need to talk to her. Please help me connect. But she didn't. And then behind her, I emailed that university as a school counselor and, shared the entire story, situation, requested for one meeting, one interview round, with her and with me. And, we cracked it. So that's what rejection is. It can really pull down a child. But that's the power we also have as counselors, that how can we support a child? And see, every time it's not going to be a success story. And I think rejection is real. We also need to accept rejection. So let's see what are the different ways that we can actually accept rejection and help our students accept it. And where we can help, let's help. All right. Next, please. Okay. So when we got down to really working on our slides, we got into that deep thought of how and where this rejection comes from. So we want to broaden the horizon of rejection for all of you and just get you to start thinking, where is this rejection coming from? So before we talk about all the different stakeholders, I have some very interesting data pieces for you. We did a counselor survey with almost 80 counselors, and this is the data that I want to share with you. So if you see, almost 80+% of our counselors say that they experience student rejections and anxieties associated to it at least once a week, if not 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a month, which is huge, which is real. And 63% of our counselors say they are trying to do something about it, but they don't really know what to do and how much to do and where to draw that line that, okay, beyond this, I think this child needs to be referred to a psychotherapist. We don't know where to draw that line, and what all things can we do as career counselors to support our children through these emotions. And the next piece is a very interesting student focused group that I did with a set of students. And interestingly, 60% of my students say that when they experience rejection, the response to that is either a panic attack or a meltdown. So again, I think only 40% of our students are resilient enough to say that, I'm ready to face it. 60% of our students need help. And that's what we want you all to know and be aware of, that this is a need, this is real, and we all need to together do something about it. This is a very interesting slide. And it tells you that 100% of my focused group students shared that they feel rejected mostly by school, mostly within the school. So, now taking you one step ahead of applications. Rejection is not only about applications, it's the entire experience of the student. So, that's that. And the second highest is self-rejection. So students are rejecting themselves 100 times before they actually get rejected. And that is affecting their emotions. And then, of course, friends, family, society also have a huge role to play. Okay, now let's expand the definition of rejection and where it's coming from. So first is students and universities and future workspace. So like I said, the biggest rejection comes when the student reads, "We regret to inform you," and they know what it's coming. That's the biggest rejection that a student experiences. But also beyond that, there are many times that, when the student reads, what are the entry requirements of a university? And the child just comes and, this student came to me and, "Ma'am, I think I'm not worthy enough to apply to any of the good schools because I'm not having the grades that they require." So ultimately, the child self-rejected himself and said, "I don't want to apply." Or a child will say, "I don't have enough of the profiling, that portfolio that US universities, good universities require. So I self-reject. I don't want to apply to US. I don't think I will get through." So these are all different types of rejections that students go through. Also, lack of support during application. This can actually, counselors have a huge role to play to bridge this gap, but a lot of students said that we don't get enough support from a school counselor or from an IEC, or they also feel they are punished if they use an IEC. If they take services of an independent education consultant, a lot of school counselors still have that resistance that, why are you taking their help? We are there. You should have taken help from us. So they feel rejected in this process, that what is really the right thing to do? Where do I go? And of course, job applications and rejections associated to that. Okay, students and career college counselors, did you guys ever think of this? That we also reject students, right? We tell our students that, hey, you can't apply here. I don't think you will get through. And all these words really hit our students badly because they hold us very highly. And when we say it, it means the world to them. I totally understand that there is no other way out sometimes, right? But over the years, I've realized that if we can find a way to, instead of saying it directly to the student on the face, hey, you'll not get here, can we say it in some other way? Hey, let's try, but why don't we look at this, and this option as well? If we can just reduce the impact of our words and make them feel less rejected, I think that's the idea. Okay, not able to accommodate all meeting requests. Now that's real. I totally empathize. We all know that the counselor and student ratio is so bad that I think we also can't do much about it. But still try to manage your calendar well, that at least you give that one important meeting, long discussion to each student. There was one case, one of my students, she just missed Columbia, and I had given her a feedback on her essay. But when she got a rejection, I just felt as a counselor, I wish I had followed it up with her and, did like a second and third edit of her essay. And maybe something would have changed, because that girl was so capable. And we all have these stories, right? Where the student is so capable and still getting rejected. And the real answer is not just about the student, but there are so many other external factors that the universities consider before they reject a student. So some things are beyond us, but it's just that whatever we can, we want to do that. But students do feel rejected there. Yeah. Okay, students and schools, this is the biggest, right? 100% of my students said that they feel rejected mostly by the school. What's happening inside the school? There is favoritism which exists. I think it's not about the culture of the school, but if there are 200 different teachers working and the student is interacting with them, you don't know if someone's ethics are into favoritism. They're not really ethical about it. We can't have any control over it, but that is true. Then students always are coming to me that, ma'am, I know I deserve a better predicted grade, and you're not giving me that. My teachers are not giving me that. So that's a constant fight. Letter of recommendations. They always want the best of the letter of recommendations and even requesting from the principals. But, sometimes principal doesn't have the time to do that. Sometimes as teachers, they are too busy and we miss out on that. Sometimes the uploads are delayed. Also, some special scenarios, like recently there was this SAT exam, and the same dates, that was clashing for my student who had an internal exam as well. And that internal exam, 12th half yearly, will be the mid-year report of this kid and will also be the basis of the predicted grade for this kid. So now the school is also in a predicament that what do I do? Like, either you write the SAT and give the test, otherwise I don't know what to do. There are systems and processes. And so this child felt very, very torn apart, that how do I manage both? School needs to support me. So there are special scenarios and tons of it where we as counselors need to stand tall and just have the back of our kids. However way we want to maneuver, we need to support these special cases as well. If anyone wants to add anything in between, just with a raise of hand, okay? Next, please. Okay, friends. Okay, a very classic case. One student came to me. We always do social media posts and all of that for our student placements. All of us do, right? So this girl came to me and she said, ma'am, I want to study in India, but I want to do applications to the US and UK as well. And I was like, why would you want to do that? And her answer was to show off to my friends that, I'm capable to get in there. It's just that my parents are not capable enough to send me there. So I want to prove my point that I'm capable. Because in India, only if you're doing IIMs and IITs and then those fancy names, that's when that's when the student gets respect, right? And this student she had that hunger for respect, and she thought of getting it this way. So this is real. What is going on in students' mind, we don't know. And this is the reality, that students create a mental bubble that I want, next slide please, I want my friends, my parents, my uncles and aunties to really perceive me the way I want them to see me. So this is one of their ways of doing that. Okay, family. Again, a very big hindrance. Sir was talking to me yesterday about this, that please do a session for my parents. They're standing right in the middle between, me and my student and their career. So, okay, again, our parents do not want to understand. Anyone who attended Red Seas to Blue Oceans? So we know Red Seas are the old careers and Blue Ocean is the new age careers, right? Our parents don't want to hear about blue oceans. And even if they hear, then they come back to the same thing. But ma'am, this cousin, this nephew and this niece, he is going there, and then he's got this package, and now he's so well settled. So I know that if my child becomes a doctor, settled, engineer, settled, CA, settled, architecture, settled, anything else, I don't know. Correct? So our students imagine how rejected they feel, that I'm aware of the blue oceans, but I'm being pulled back to the Red Seas. And how can we as counselors play a role there? That's what we need to introspect and think. Okay. Yeah, society, of course, we know that social media is becoming so big that I know of students coming to me and saying, ma'am, every year when the results are released, I just see all my friends posting, or my uncles and aunts posting about their children. My child is going here, I'm going there, I'm accepted here, I'm accepted there. And that's when, this child feels so low that I have nothing to post. I am nothing. Who am I? What have I done? And what do I do for the society to take me seriously, and for the society to think that I have something in me, I can do it? So these are all rejection experiences that are gradually built up, for the child. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the self rejection. So, one case, one of my student, he is brilliant. And I know that, I knew it that he will make it through. But he would every day come and sit in my office and be like, ma'am, I don't know whether I'll get it. I don't know. And what if I get rejected? His only statement would be every day, from the time we submitted the application till the time we received the email, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. What if I don't? What if I don't? So imagine he had that bubble in his mind that what if I get rejected? What will happen to me? That fear of rejection was so huge for him that he was not able to burst that bubble. And ultimately, when we opened the email, it said, "Congratulations." But for that 2 months, this child suffered for no reason. Right? These are all real scenarios that I'm sharing with all of you. And of course, perfectionism. Let me tell you, there are tons of, especially a lot of girls that I know of, they have their own benchmarks in their mind. That if I have my friend here, she also is a perfectionist. And we all are in some ways, right? We want to do it well or we don't want to do it. That's the mindset. We don't have that, it's okay if I don't do well this time. It's okay. We don't have that acceptance. And the same is with our students. But perfectionism is a very bad bug. It's a very thin line, perfectionism to OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. We don't know when we are crossing that line. So be watchful of your students. Okay, emotional impact of rejection. Now I've shared so many things, right? I want to know from you guys, what are the emotions that you have seen your students feel, or you have felt empathized with them? What emotion came to you when a child felt rejected, when you feel rejected? What are the emotions? Anything? No, what is the emotion that they feel? They feel sad, anxiety, anger, self isolation, self pity, self worth, low self esteem, self harm, quiet isolation. They don't want to talk, they disappear. Here you go. Exactly. All of this happens, and a lot of shame and guilt. They don't feel that they can face the world, right? Absolutely. So, what are the behavioral impact? What is the behavioral impact of rejection? Aggression. Yes, absolutely. Giving up hope. Demotivated. Absolutely. So, see, there are several negative impacts. One is the fear of rejection. Once the child gets a bad SAT grade, that child is so scared to write the SAT exam one more time because, again, self rejection. What if I don't get grades this time? What if? So, that fear of rejection also has a huge impact. Social withdrawal, like some of us said, that socially they feel shame and guilt. What will my friends say? What will my teachers think of me? I'm such a good student, but I couldn't get the right grades. Decreased academic performance. It's true that once you are in your shell, you close yourself, you're not able to perform the best what you originally could have. And then risky behaviors, like Sir mentioned, right? Self harm. And this is a minuscule part, very, very small percentage, but only one case of suicide and the whole industry is shattered, right? So we need to save these students, and we need to play a role there. And the other side is also positive impact. Did you think of it? When someone is rejected, some good things also happen to some of us and our students. Sorry? Stronger. Anything else? Resilient. Resilient. Start working hard. Exactly. More focused. So sometimes we get even more determined to prove it to ourselves and to the society and to our parents and to our teachers and to our friends that no, man, I can do it and I will do it this time. So some of our students actually get resilient and they actually are able to do it. And of course, sometimes we can also play a role just by saying that, okay, I think you've tried your SAT twice. If it's not happening, let's think of an alternate career path. Let's change our way. It's okay. When we see a traffic jam, we change our way, right? Why can't we change our way here? We will get there, but maybe through a longer route. Over to my friend now.
All right, so just I know Kushbu just talked about the positive impact, but just going back to all the negative emotions, why does it hurt so much? My background is in cognitive science and I really like research, and I found this really cool study that they apparently just put people in this machine, they scanned their brains, all of these people had went through a recent rejection, and the same area in the brain lit up when you actually experience physical pain. So it is very normal that it hurts that much, like the same area that lights up when you feel physical pain. We are incredibly social creatures. If you look at evolutionary psychology, we evolved to be in a group, to have our own responsibilities, and to survive. We cannot survive by ourselves. And what rejection indicates is that you are excluded from a potential social group. In a way, being a part of a group is essential for our survival. And in a way, our body and brain is like, shoot, we cannot survive anymore. So these reactions may seem exaggerated, but when you look at our evolutionary past and how our brain responds to it, it actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like Kushbu went over the solutions in her part, but I'm going to go over it in a more structured way. We all said resilience as an effect of the positive impact. We don't want to catastrophize resilience. Go back to the survey. 60% of the students said they either had a meltdown or a panic attack, but 40% of the students they will take it in their stride. And let's not forget, students are not snowflakes. I feel like as educators, we often are like, oh, they're snowflakes, they cannot deal with things. Students are resilient, they are strong. As we were, we shouldn't necessarily demean, or we should really respect their resilience. And through rejections and also through the solutions that I will go through, hopefully this will help them to be more resilient. So I just don't want to catastrophize it, but also remind that yes, it hurts, but also it's a good chance to grow. I think this is. So.
Oh, okay. So, in our school scenario, there are many things that we can do to create that supportive environment. And for me, some things that really worked out was getting my principal and vice principal to the conference. First step, right? Because how many ever times I educate them, it is someone, okay, you're in the school, you will definitely say this, it's okay. But the moment they hear it from 10 other principals in the presidential forum and they see the world coming together for career counseling, they start understanding and valuing this process even more. So now, after this conference, she's coming here after 5 years. I know that already I'm feeling comforted. I'm already feeling, okay, she has my back, and whatever I'll throw at her, she'll be okay to listen through, what needs to be done. So that's one. Second is, sometimes students just need a long coffee chat. There are students who just walk up to me in my office Miss, can I just spend 15 minutes with you? I just want to pour out. I just want to share. And they'll come and non-stop 15 minutes, blah, 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 blah. And then, I'm feeling much better, right? So sometimes it's just that. Give yourself to them. Just be with them. Just give away your time. That's it. Okay, educating parents. Like I was saying, sir, that even I'm struggling with that. At any level, tier 3 cities, even worse. Tier 2, like me, I come from Bhopal, it's also equally challenging. Parents have a typical mindset, and to bust their prejudices and myths, it is a challenge. But very, very regular parent sessions, workshops, and also a lot of recommendations that I keep sending. Hey, read this article. Hey, read this book. This is some anecdote that a student shared about their journey, and also sharing experiences of some students who've done something beyond the traditional careers. They have explored the blue oceans. If you just keep sharing some success stories with them, that also goes a very long way in just changing the mindset. But the alert is, it's not going to happen overnight. It might take a year, it might take 2 years to change the fabric, change the culture, change the mindset. But it happens. I have started to see that happen gradually in my school. Okay, teachers are also very judgmental sometimes. Very, very judgmental. Yeah, and I every year before the session begins in my school, the new academic year, we have a week-long training program for our teachers, in which one session is definitely what I do for them. And in that session, I try to talk to them about all the changes that are happening, how Gen Z behave, why it is important for us to be understanding of what they think, how they feel, and what we can do. So these conversations at least changes the conversations, the narrative changes, and the teachers are little more open to those new careers and new professions, and they are ready to explore that with me. Hey, my students talking about this, do you really think it makes sense? At least we warm them up to these conversations. Over to you.
And I would like to include one more key stakeholder. Earlier, Kushbu talked about this important question. When has it become within our boundary to help students who are feeling depressed, but we're not therapists, or maybe some of us are trained therapists, but I myself am not. We're not trained nor qualified nor certified to help students who are experiencing anxiety disorders or major depressive disorder. So the key stakeholder here would be the social emotional counselor and or the external psychological service providers. In my school, we have a social emotional counselor, and I tag team with her a lot. I chat with her about student cases. She reveals as much information as it is appropriate for her to provide. I think there are 3 aspects that we can reflect on to see when is this case in our plate and when should we start giving it over to somebody else. There's boundaries, willingness, and capacity. So are we willing to help the student in distress or not? Do we have the capacity even if we're willing to? And is it responsible in our boundaries as career counselors? But if you're a comprehensive counselor, you can do all of it, a holistic approach. But I will include more resources that goes into an article that talks about that later, so you can have access to that. Right, so I'm going to group, for the rest of our time, I'm going to group possible solutions in themes and talk about why this is helpful and possible practical solutions. So firstly, let us acknowledge the reality of rejection. I'm going to focus on 2 words here, the reality and acknowledge. So firstly, let's raise awareness of the possible reasons for rejection beyond student competence. So the simplistic meritocratic way is A, I work hard, B, I'm smart, therefore I get into university. World works like that. Reality check, it actually doesn't. But when you have that simplistic meritocratic idea in mind, then when you get rejected, then you start questioning your own competence as a student. Let's face it, we package it as it's packaged as a fair game, but it's actually not as fair as we would like it to. And when we acknowledge that as career counselors and talk about the myriad ways that the external circumstances that are beyond our control, that do control this, and when I talked about it to a student, I just sensed a sense of relief. Oh, it's like actually not all on me. What you can do is try your best and then submit your application, plan your university list out strategically, but then if you don't get it, it's actually not your fault. So highlighting the actual, what the reality is like is incredibly helpful. And secondly, let's focus on the acknowledge. LinkedIn posts, social media posts, we all celebrate successes and acceptances constantly, right? Like, it's good marketing material for our school. We don't really see similar content for when we get rejected. We don't really like feeling we are so happy to be happy with each other, but when we see somebody else experiencing negative emotions, it is admittedly harder to approach them. We don't have to console like a random stranger. You can if you want, but with our students, we should normalize that life will be filled with rejections. This is your first one, and let's learn how to be resilient together. And you later in life, they may not have such a supportive adult figure, but you are the person to be there for them now. As Kush said, the long coffee chats, they just need a person to talk to. Just sit in your office and, hey, it happens, it hurts, I'm here for you, we're gonna try again. Right, so I also have a small story. I also had a brilliant student, Mary, neuroscientist, but also started a feminist organization, a writer. She aspired to top U.S. universities. She would have done great there. She got rejected from her early decision, which was Vanderbilt. And there were so many things that I want to tell to her. But then I realized this should be told to everyone in the class. So in December, I do weekly workshops for my students, and I organize a rejection workshop where I included all of the things that I'm going to also tell you. And I think that I did a survey with my students after the year, and one of the favorite things was like, this rejection workshop was really good for me. So I think how to acknowledge the reality openly is to talk about it with your group, talk about it with your students. Right, I will also share the slides with you later so you can adapt and modify for your needs. Right. So we talked about all the negative emotions that arise from rejections. How do we cope with that and accept that? Right, we went over that. Again, as with celebrating successes, celebrating positive emotions, we don't really discuss the negative emotions and failures. We don't necessarily need to, but we should help students understand that this is normal reaction. Are there times, sometimes I feel this way. I realize that I'm anxious, and then I get anxious for being anxious. Or I feel guilty, and I feel guilty for being guilty, and there's a cycle of negative emotions. But I just acknowledge that, hey, I'm feeling this way. Okay, then oftentimes we don't really know what we're feeling, right? Especially with such a powerful, big experience like rejection, you might feel a host of emotions. And even as adults, we're not used to naming these reactions in us, especially for students. So I feel like, again, we're not therapists, we're not teachers, but there are psychoeducational resources out there. You can save it in a folder and pull it out of a conversation with a student. I'll share one of my favorite ones with you. So I think that's one thing we can do as career counselors in line with the theme of this conference. Let's focus more on mental health in this way. Right, so this is one of my favorite tools. It's called a feelings wheel. So what are the 5 basic emotions we learn in school? There's anger, sadness, happiness, etc. But then they become a bit minute. So, sadness can branch into, are you feeling disappointed or neglected or despair? And that can further granulate into, there's all these, are you regretful or are you guilty? Are you isolated or lonely? Are you feeling envy, resentful, jealous? There's all these words for emotions. And as we go through the words, we actually realize what we're feeling. So how I use this is after a big event, I just run my fingers through this and I'm like, I'm feeling this. I am not feeling this, I'm feeling this, then this. And then I realized, wow, I'm feeling so many emotions. This is actually also used in couples therapy. If you look at an event and compare how your partner and you react to the same event, often you're having very different emotional responses. So that's also like, why you're so different. But bringing back to rejection, I showed this to my student and I'm like, hey, like, what are you feeling? And can you try naming it into words? And also in English, we liken ourselves to our emotion. I am sad. I am angry. I am anxious. And then you become the emotion. But if you looked at Inside Out too, we can separate ourselves from the emotions by saying, I feel sadness and anxiety, but you are not that emotion. So having that distance is helpful. Yes? Yes?
Morning and Jai Hind, everyone. Ma'am, here I would like to add on a little thing.
Yes.
Actually, rejection and the emotional outburst, this is in case of the students, those who are usually having the low self-esteem. They basically do not understand their potentiality. But as per the psychological approach, this is humanistic approach. This approach tells us there is the enormous capacity among the kids, among the individual, that who can do it any kind of task if the human being can be able to do it.
Is it Rogerian?
So the another thing, whenever the child is claiming that he or she is being rejected, so being a counselor, this is the first important thing to understand whether he is really rejected or he is perceiving only the rejection. In most of the cases, the students, they are perceiving only the rejection. Ki I am being rejected by this teachers and so on. So, but whenever he is perceiving the rejection or really being rejected, in both the situation, the reaction among the kid will be the same. So, our role is very crucial how to manage these things. So, what I personally felt about it, in case if we upgrade the esteem of the kids, so the kid will be managing his potential to manage in the situation of the rejection.
That's great. I have two slides devoted to
Yes,
that.
yes, ma'am. And to very clear understanding among we all present here, I'll be just sharing one case to understand it. Was a kid who was in class 3rd and 4th and was very academically poor. So, in that situation, the kid was not able to upgrade the thing and very low self-esteem.
Sir, wait, that's a great point. I have two slides devoted to self-esteem and self-compassion. We are short on time. We would love to chat with you after the slide. I just need to finish in 15 minutes and then also go to Q&A. Yes, but we're a bit over time, so I'm just gonna make sure that. Wait, sorry, there's one more. I will go back to the self-esteem, but when I give the rejection workshop, I talk about my own experience as a student. When I was a high school student, I applied to 10 US universities. I had no idea about the need-based, that you will have lower admissions if you ask for a need. So I got rejected from 9 out of 10 universities. Thankfully, the one I got into had scholarships, thanks for accessibility. But when I share that experience with my students, they're like, oh my goodness, like, you too. As a staff figure, do share your own experience too, and that really humanizes the whole experience. Self-esteem, strengths, values, yes, very important. When you're rejected, it's really easy to zero in on the negative aspects of yourself. Oh, I'm terrible at math. I should have done better. I should have done that activity. Why didn't I choose that class? And it's your role to remind them that there are more things than the negative parts, especially if they're not straight A students. Their strengths and qualities are not rewarded in school, but as career and college counselors, we know that these traits might be later rewarded. You know, students who are successful in school, like not successful in school, may turn out to be very successful later. Bring out case studies of such cases and emphasize that your traits that might not be rewarded now might be rewarded fairly later. And beyond that, please help them to find stable positive traits and even deeper values that are not externally dependent on rejections or surprise, even acceptances. So what are these are some solutions where you can find your strengths. I'm going to include a link later about a strengths test they can do, like psychometric tests, but find your strengths. Common App essay exercises are actually deep dive into finding your value system and you. I know they're used in the admission system, but you can actually reverse these tools and help students to accept themselves more and learn about their values. And I emphasize values because things like I value loyalty, I value honesty, I value diligence, those things do not change in the face of rejection or acceptances for that matter. So help your students find their internal grounded self because as an adolescent, you're so affected by peers. Your brains have not fully formed yet. It's very normal to be affected by peers. You can remind them that, hey, I get it, but here are internal traits that will carry you far in life, no matter your external institutional associations. Perfectionism and bias. Actually, perfectionism is a huge bias. So I think that's the main bias that we can challenge, but there are other biases that I'll quickly go over. So Kushba talked about this earlier. Underlying assumption and goal for all students is in a way to be perfect, right? Which is completely unachievable, but it sort of seems to be rewarded by society and school. And I mean, self-disclosure, I'm also a perfectionist. I have to constantly check in like, okay, this is enough. Like, you are enough. This is enough. You cannot be perfect. Along with perfectionisms, there is a lot of cognitive bias in the university application system. I'm also going to share a link that dives into a bias later. For example, halo effect. I go into the university, therefore I'm a better person. Availability heuristic. I heard about this more, so it must be a better school. I'll share the article later, but there's so many biases, including perfectionism. And as a guidance counselor, you don't need to study psychology. There are resources out there, but you are, as an adult figure, to tell them, hey, you're being a perfectionist now. Hey, that's a biased thinking. Humans are biased. We are not rational. That's a vestige of the Enlightenment. But even though we're not rational, and that's a beautiful thing, we should check on our irrational behavior thoughts lead us to certain conclusions that are not helpful for us. So here's some practical solutions. I have this perfectionism worksheet in my folder, and a student comes into my office and I'm like, oh, I didn't do well in my math exam. I'm going to fail. I'm like, here, try reading this worksheet about perfectionism. Do you think you're striving for excellence, or is this an unachievable bias? I also have some self-compassion statements. Self-compassion is a powerful tool. It goes even deeper than self-esteem and self-confidence. It's accepting yourself for no matter who you are. Self-esteem and self-confidence focuses only on your positive traits, like your strengths, but self-compassion comes with just unconditional self-acceptance. I have article of self-compassion statements, and I either hand it to the students or you can even try saying together, like, can you repeat after me? I am not perfect, and that's okay. So these are small things we can incorporate in our practice. And also cognitive biases in the application process. That doesn't involve just educating the students, but also educating the parental community. And maybe also spotting it in ourselves, right? We are also biased creatures, and that's okay. Let's just learn to educate ourselves so that we don't guide students according to their biases or our own biases as well. Right. And of course, we talked about the emotional part, but there's also the reality. If they're rejected, then they can't. What are the options? I think there's two things we can do. Creating plan Bs come before hearing the news of the rejection. Planning for the future comes after hearing the news of the rejection. So here's one thing I do with my students. Prepare for all possibilities when applying. Even before hearing the news, let's say a student we're an IB school, consistently scores around a 26. The IB upgraded the grade of maybe a 27. And I sit down and I say, okay, so if you get below a 24, there's community college, there's foundation year, gap years, my top students do it, it's great. Let's reassure them that even if you fail, then there will be options and I will help you look at that and we'll be prepared. If you get between a 24 and 26, maybe you can consider major A at University X. But if you do a little bit higher, maybe you can consider major B. And then, let's say you really overperform, that'd be great, and we can consider that university depending on the research you did. Doing this, I feel like students really appreciate that we got all bases covered. I don't have to reach that, and we don't only have plans made for your perfect self. We have plans made for all kinds of selves and all achievement bands. Right, self-coaching models. I will include an article about that later. And after they have been rejected, or even beforehand, I just try to point them towards new possibilities. They often only have one ideal university in mind, one university I should go to. It's availability heuristic is when you hear of something, then we think it's better. What are the universities we have heard of as 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, Harvard, Princeton, Yale? Because we have only heard of them, that's why we think they're better. But there are other universities that are equally as good, so I give them a research activity. I have the Fisk guide in my office, which I give it to them. Like, can you read about this university? And let's get excited because let's work this availability heuristic to our advantage. Let's research more about this, and then I will like it. So that's, you can do that? Sorry. And then we can help them be excited about plan Bs. The slide. I'm going to, okay, yes.
All the slides will anyways be uploaded on the app after the conference.
Right, and finally, I remind them that rejection means that they were, as an act of courage. Every application is an act of putting yourself out there. And what an amazing act of courage, and that in itself deserves to be celebrated and congratulated, and you are the adult figure who can do that. As Coach said earlier, staff, parents won't necessarily do that, society won't do that, but remind them that they're just stepping their foot onto the world. How amazing is that, no matter what the result is? I end the rejection workshop with the picture of this lady, and everyone's like, who is this lady? Why does her skirt look weird? Why does she look so happy? She's Caitlin Kirby. She defended her PhD dissertation, and she made that skirt out of 17 rejection letters she received during her academic career. Like, what guts to make a skirt out of 17 rejection letters? That's even going beyond just accepting it. That's actually celebrating rejection. And that's what we can do as well. It's a brilliant idea, but I was talking to Kubi earlier, and you made a board out of this, like, just a long story, but this New Zealand system, and you can still get your rejections and tear them apart, make art out of it, create cathartic things, celebrate that, because that's all necessary part of the journey. We will face many rejections, and we need to learn to be resilient. So go back to Mary. I made the rejection workshop for her, and I saw her like tearing up a little bit during the workshop. I'm like, my work as a counselor is done. Like, I can die happy now. I got this letter from her at the end of the year, and there was this excerpt. And when I got this, no matter what the offers are, this is what it's worth it. Thank you for letting me know that I'm worth far more than a few pieces of acceptance and rejection letters. If this is our job is to guide them through the application process to the right things, but also we don't have to be therapists, we don't have to be social emotional counselors. We can remind our students that they are worth far more than a few pieces of acceptance and rejection letters. Thank you.
So let's open up for questions.
Sorry, just resources. I thought the slides would be shared, so I linked everything here. And I also have a website where I post a bunch of resources about well-being. And I write a lot of articles on psychology, so the cognitive biases. So yes, you can feel free to screenshot that, take a photo of that. And we're happy to share the slides. If you find me on LinkedIn, previous slide. Yes, but these are links.
Yeah,
so
this will not help.
We should send it to you.
So just find us on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We are there on the app. Just send a message to us. We want the link, and we'll provide you the resources.
The IC3 should release the slides, but if it's not, we're happy to provide it. So let us know. We'll send you the links.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, that's the original article that I wrote about this, about self-compassion. That's the face of rejection. So finally, Q&A for 5 minutes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to share about the rejections when she told about 17 rejections. I was a mechanical engineer. I was about to move to IT. I'm from Bangalore. So before I get succeeded, I got rejected 25 times for 4 months, daily going to attend interviews and coming back, attending interviews and coming back. Finally, 26th interview, I got selected. So that has turned my life. So now I can strongly say that anything can happen in the world. Unless otherwise you don't get rejected, it may not even happen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Q&A.
Hi, thank you so much, ma'am. Here.
Okay.
Hi. I just had a thought in my mind. Just wanted to ask, like, we talk a lot about reflection these days,
Yeah, self-reflection.
right? So, does in any way reflection helps us to cope with rejection? You look back, you see what we have done, right? And then we try to cope up. Does it help in some way or the other?
I think it does help, but we should be careful for reflection not to become rumination. And I think when you're reflecting alone as a student who just experienced rejection, reflection so easily becomes rumination. So as our counselors, we should reflection in a positive, meaningful direction.
And in these resources, we have put some reflection sheets that
fine.
can be used with your students.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Provide our students with psycho-educational resources.
Yes.
Do you have?
Yes,
Yes,
these basically
these links have
psychologists, they sound fancy, but they're like worksheets, a definition of perfectionism, list of compassion statements, which I've linked it in my website. Website created for supporting well-being. That's just full of educational resources I got from like therapist websites. I vetted it. I went through it with my social emotional counselor. So, yes, I think that's safe to use. And yet, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
It was a wonderful session. How do you manage working with the teachers? I'm also a teacher. I'm not. I shouldn't be talking about, but I think there is a strong, vibe that is spread from the teachers, especially when they don't score enough.
Right.
So the stereotype statement that some of the teachers, I don't mean to say all the teachers make that. Those statements, they are like they hurt that hurts very badly students. Most of the time our rooms, it's more like a vent session. Ma'am, my teacher said I can't do linguistics, I can't do this, I can't do this, my math score is very bad. And when we go back to the teachers, we obviously, they're also adults, they're also professionals, they have their own experience and other stuff. Sometimes I find that more challenging, actually. Working
That's
with the
true.
teachers is more challenging than working with the
So
students.
I feel working with teachers is the same as working with parents. Very tough nut to break. And there is a pattern that is already set. We are going against the tide. We are trying to change the pattern. So it cannot happen overnight, but I think there are schools who have been trying to change the narrative. They have been trying to quote tons of examples to teachers where their students have been successful. Like, so this year we did a career immersion day in my school. Like an annual function, I did one whole day of career immersion. In that, all the alumni that I invited over were all the backbenchers and who are now successful individuals, especially for teachers. So those were influencers, those were sport writers, and one was a sommelier. And it was amazing. The teachers were like, oh, is it possible? Like, this guy always flunked in my class. I was forever after this kid. And how did they make it in life so big? So, you have to try and experiment and do things in school that just opens up the minds of people to how life is possible. And I always feel that there are, 12,000 plus universities in the world. How is it not possible that this one kid will not find any good university for himself or herself? कुछ तो मिलेगा, something will work out, right? Maybe the route will not be so direct. Maybe 1 or 2 extra years we'll take a detour, but we'll still be successful if we all reflect on our own selves. I think I am not an IITian. I'm not coming from IIMs. I'm doing okay in life. So we need to tell them about success stories. That's the best way, I think. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, time's up. So
Yes.
we got
Yes.
All right, time is
Correct.
up, unfortunately. So wonderful discussions. Happy to talk.
Just one question. The ma'am said that what we have to take care when the child is getting rejection, what the role of a counselor should be there. Like as a parent, I just want to understand at times very difficult for us when we are ourselves a parent and doing a particular task with the student in a different way, but once we are back home we are not doing the same thing with our own child.
Correct.
And this year I faced this problem so almost every day, because I was able to convince the parent of other student but was not able to convince the same time in the same way to my own child. So how to make this balance as a school counselor and as a mother counselor?
I am exactly in the same boat, and my son is into sports. He doesn't want to study at all. He's like, you're wasting my time sending me to school. Send me to a sport academy. I think I'm also trying to talk to a lot of people, trying to understand. Even here I'm trying to talk to so many people. What all are the options? What all is... Yeah, right. So thankfully, we are at least open to this parallel universe, which is possible without grades, right? So we have to do our homework, and there is a lot of acceptance, reflection, and a lot of resilience. The path might not be easy. But I think we need to be ready to just jump on. And life is also like a meandering. It takes you from one place to the other. You need to flow and have that leap of faith and jump.
I think I'm jumped already. Now need to see how to come back from there.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.